welcome in spooks and welcome to my Q3 wrap up. Now this is kind of a new setup where I'm not going to be wrapping up the books I read month by month. I'm going to do it quarterly, and if that's something that you don't vibe with and you think I should do it monthly, let me know. I will welcome the feedback and I might change up what I'm doing, but I think for ease for me, doing it once every 3 months is a lot easier than doing it once every month. And I then have more to talk about because there are some months where I really don't read a lot, like July for example. Did not read a lot, but then there are months like September where I read loads, so going across the entire quarter means I have more to talk about and more books to show you. So let's talk about those books, shall we? In the months of July, August and September I read 18 books, and I'm very pleased with that amount. I could do better, but I'm very pleased with that amount. I read 3,316 pages. Again, that is top-notch score for me. I listened to 37 hours and 7 minutes of audiobook. That's probably a little less than usual. I think in the month of August I only listened to one audiobook, whereas usually I've got one on the go throughout the entire month, so I usually read maybe 2 or 3. But I only read one in August, or listened to one in August. You get me. My average rating was 3.94. I think that's the best I've ever had. Ever. Since I've been tracking, that's the best I've ever had. That's crazy, and I did definitely have some really good 5 stars. We'll get into it. Would you expect anything less? My most read genre in the months of July, August and September was of course horror. Would you expect anything less? I hope not. Fantasy 4. Fantasy 4 for second place. But no, horror wins as always. Let's get into the books. We have to go fast, there's a lot to talk about. These are probably going to be in order. I try to track, I have a spreadsheet, of course. I try to track when I finished a book, my rating and when I finished it, but it's not always accurate, I'll be honest. So my Goodreads could be correct, my spreadsheet could be correct, they could be the same, they could be different, I don't know. That's not my business. So I will try to do it in order of when I completed them, but I could be wrong. Anyway, I suffered a reading slump in July. However, the first book I finished was Don't Let the Forest In by C.G. Drews, and this was a 5-star read. It did take me 2 weeks to finish because I was in a reading slump, but this was a 5-star read. And I'm gonna have to keep my reviews very short because we've got a lot to talk about, but I will say this is a YA, I think, queer horror, and it is body horror, it is plant horror. It is stunning. It's the first I read of the author, and I immediately pre-ordered the paperback version of Hazelthorn. I don't think it's arrived yet. It could be on my shelf. I tidied them recently and now I don't know where anything is. Love that for me. I put them in colour order, and I always assume, I assume that C.G. Drews' books are dark, but then we have this curveball, so I don't know where it is on the shelf now. I should probably put them in genre or alphabetical, but no. I like that it looks in colour order. Anyway, I said I'd be quick and I haven't been quick. 5 stars. I then read The Teller of Small Fortunes by Julie Young, and this is, I think this might be one of the most beautiful copies I own. And the cover definitely matches the content. It is a very cozy, sweet fantasy, and it's found family, and it's magic. It was a 3-star for me. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it wasn't groundbreaking and I wouldn't reread it. I listened to the audiobook because I didn't want to damage my beautiful copy. And I think maybe if I had physically read it, would I have connected with the story and the characters more? Perhaps. That is something that happens when I listen to an audiobook. There are occasions where I'm not connected as much as I would be if I read it physically. However, I do feel like the subject, the characters, weren't going to make it any higher than a 3-star for me. Which is a shame because I was very excited about this one. And it is beautiful and it is a lovely story. It is heartwarming and sweet, just not quite what I wanted. I wanted more magic, maybe higher stakes, but I picked up a cozy fantasy, so that's on me. Next up in July, I read non-fiction, and I read Women Living Deliciously by Florence Given. Now, I don't rate non-fiction or memoirs because I'm not rating the content, that seems strange, but I will say Florence Given's illustrations are so stunning, but I would say I don't think I learned anything in this book that I didn't already know. However, it is good as a reminder to put those things into practice. So I was listening to it feeling, yeah, oh yeah, I should. But I wasn't like, ah. Like when I read Atomic Habits for the first time, that was a moment. You know what I mean? But it's a really beautiful copy, and I think it could be very life-changing for somebody. Just not me. The last book I read in July was Garlic and the Vampire by Brie Paulson. And this is a graphic novel, The Evidence, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was a 5-star read for me, and I loved it so much I immediately bought the sequel. I think I was halfway through when I bought the sequel. It's just... the illustration style is exactly what I'm looking for in a graphic novel. If I'm going cozy, this is kind of cozy fantasy, I would say. If I'm going horror, very different. Very different expectations, okay? But for cozy fantasy, this was so far up my street, it was next door. It was living in my house. That's how far up my street it was, okay? I shouldn't say that when I'm home alone. Stay out of my house. Wait until I've at least finished filming. I love this so much. I would definitely reread this, and I would definitely recommend. We then move on to August, and I read We Had to Remove This Post. I would not like to attempt pronouncing this person's last name, but I'll put it on the screen for you. And I read this via ebook, so I don't have the physical copy, and I enjoyed it. I rated it 3 stars. I would say the genre was just fiction, general fiction. I read it because I thought it was a thriller. I was told by the internet it was a thriller, but don't believe everything that the internet tells you, because I don't think it was. Whilst I was very intrigued to keep on reading, keep turning pages, and there were parts that were thrilling, I would put it as a general fiction book. Could be wrong. Accepting that. I don't often accept that, but I will on this occasion. We Had to Remove This Post was very intriguing, and there were shocking parts that I did very much enjoy. So, I don't know. You read it, you make up your own mind about what the genre is. I don't know, but I did read it as part of my Slump Solver video, so all my deep thoughts will be in that vlog. Next up in August, I read Bat Eater by Kylie Lee Baker, and I have a beautiful Evernight copy. I love it. The book itself was a 3.5 for me. I did very much enjoy the story, and I think that the commentary that is underlying the horror, spot on. Very, very well done, and I would highly recommend it, actually. Oh yes, this one. Next up in August, I read We All Rot Eventually by Mia Ballard. I do want to read another of their books. This one is a horror novella. It's teeny tiny, and I rated it 3.5 stars again. So this one, I toy between 3.5 and 4. It was very good, but this was kind of like ironic, humorous horror. It was gory in parts, very gory in parts in fact, and there was a very good twist at the end. It had a little bit of like a paranormal side to it, and I liked that, and it left things a little bit open, and I also like that in my horror. I quite enjoy speculative endings. It doesn't all have to be wrapped up in a neat bow for me to enjoy a horror. In fact, I quite like it when it's not, but it just didn't have the wow factor for me to rate it any higher than 3.5, and 3.5 is very good. This was a very enjoyable book, would recommend, very enjoyable, that sort of level, you know? So 3.5 is high for me, it's just not like, oh I love this. That's where my 4 sit at. You with me? You with me. Again, I did read We All Rot Eventually for my sleepover vlog, so deeper thoughts are in that vlog. Next up, I read book number 2, Garlic and the Witch by Brie Paulson. And again, did not disappoint. It was a 5-star read. It is, again, a graphic novel, kind of loosely following on from Garlic and the Vampire. It does, like, I think you would want to read them both. You wouldn't want to read it as a standalone, but you could. And the ending was very sweet. There's a suggestion of a romance, and yeah, I have nothing else to say other than the artwork is beautiful. Look at the trees. The story is sweet, and I love it. I would read a number 3, but I think the way it ended, there probably isn't going to be a number 3. But I would pick up something from the author again. Next up in August, I was just on my graphic novel vibe. I read Unfamiliar by Hayley Newsome. Again, it's a witchy, cozy fantasy graphic novel. I did like the artwork, but I preferred Garlic and the Vampire for the artwork. It was still great, and I did still buy the second one because I was so intrigued. Again, it follows like a found family, witchy friends that aren't quite as far along in their witchy careers as they want to be, and so they're puzzling through some things together. And it makes for a very funny story. I think I said in my sleepover vlog, which is what I read this for, that it's very Gen Z dialogue coded, and I liked that very much. That was very fun to read. So I did rate this one 4 stars. Not quite Garlic and the Vampire, but still very, very good. Next up in the month of August, I read Girl with a Pearl Earring by Tracy Chevalier. And I read this for my prompt, a book that I would lend to my grandma. Now I think that my grandma actually gave this to me, but it still fits the prompt because I would have lent it to my grandma, but she's already read it. And I really love this. This was a 4-star read for me. I don't know much about the painting itself. I don't know if this is an accurate representation of how the painting came to be. I should probably do my research, but for right now I shall not be. It was a really, really great story, and I'm surprised because if I'm reading historical fiction, the main thing that I want is a little bit of magic. Like Bridget Collins' stories, I like that they're historical fiction because there's magic in it. Like The Miniaturist by Jessie Burton, again it's historical but it's got that little bit of magical realism or a little bit of fantasy. That's usually what hooks me and keeps me interested in a historical fiction, because usually I'm not that interested. However, this one had no magic, it was a historical fiction, that is what it is, and I loved it. I loved it. 4 stars, and if you haven't already read it, it's very popular. I recommend. Last up in the month of August, I gave myself a little birthday treat and I read Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. And I read this as part of a specific Magnolia Parks vlog. You can tell by how many tabs I used. I loved it. I picked it up thinking this is going to be a hate vlog. It was not. The cover is hideous. The original cover, I'll put it here, is so beautiful. I don't know why they did this, what marketing this is, but I hate it. But I did continue the series. I am halfway through the second book, and you know, I'm obsessed with Magnolia Parks and BJ. I don't know who I am anymore, but this is where we're at. And there is an entire dedicated vlog if you'd like to hear more thoughts, so go ahead and watch that if you're interested. A 4.5. High praise from me. We have reached the month of September and I did read The Second Unfamiliar by Hayley Newsome, and again I rated this one 4 stars. It tied up the story very nicely. Again, the family friendships are so sweet. The illustrations are great, it's very colourful, it's a enjoyable, spooky, cozy Halloween read. I have no more to say, I recommend. Next up I read Delicate Dream Department Store by Mai Lee, and this was for my translated fiction TBR prompt for September, and I rated this one 3.5 stars. And I was worried because I had heard that it had a very good premise but really bad follow through, and that's my fear. That is my biggest fear, especially with translated fiction where I hear the premise and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. The teller of small fortunes, unfortunately. I loved the idea, but when I read it I was like, oh, this could be better. I do think this had room to grow, but I don't think anything was lost in translation. I just think that they could have done more with the story. But it is an incredible premise. I love it. I told everybody when I was reading it, I told everybody, readers or not, I was telling everybody about the premise because it's so cool. And I think I would be interested in reading the sequel, but I'm not in any rush to. So I think that tells you enough, really. But if you haven't heard of it before, I highly recommend looking it up or going and watching my September TBR vlog where I think I talk about it a bit more. But the idea is really cool. Very, very cool idea. I just wanted more. I wanted more detail, less focus on the characters and more focus on the plot, I think, because the plot is so interesting. That's my only complaint, and that's why it's 3.5 and not 4. Next, I read Her Majesty's Royal Coven by Juno Dawson, and yeah, this lived up to the hype. I rated this 4 stars, and I'm very excited to continue the series. I read this as part of my TBR prompt, Friend's Favourite Book, because my lovely friend Lois, hi Lois if you're watching, recommended that I read this and read it now. She was not waiting around, and I'm glad I did not, because I loved it. Highly recommend this season. Next up, I read via ebook Know My Name by Chanel Miller. Again, this was a non-fiction, so I won't be rating it, but I will tell you that this altered my brain chemistry in the worst way, but also the best way possible. This is the story that I think everybody needs to hear. If you know anything about Chanel Miller and her story, even if you can't relate to what happened to her, where I think that most of us probably can, her story still needs to be heard, and it was beautifully written. Beautifully written. She is such a powerful writer, and this story should be heard. So please consider reading this if you feel comfortable. Obviously look up trigger warnings before you dive in. It is a heavy read, but I would highly recommend. Next up in September, I read Of the Flesh by various authors. It is a collection of short horror stories, and hear me out. I have been going through a stage the last even year or so, I would say, where short horror stories just aren't doing it for me, where I used to love them. I used to adore a short horror story, and then, I don't know, the last year I was like, I just can't get with them. They're frustrating me. This changed things for me. This was brilliant, and there are some really, really big authors in here that I love anyway. Bridget Collins and Mariana Enriquez. I am seeing Mariana Enriquez in 2 days. In 2 days, don't be jealous. Bridget Collins, I adore, one of my favourites. Amelia Hart is in here. Lucy Rose is in here. There are some like big names in here. Big names in horror. And it pays off. It's a really great collection and I recommend highly. I rated it 4 stars, which feels like a breakthrough for me. The last 2 books I read in September I do not have in physical form, but I will show you on the screen. I read, for my sins, Tapeworming by Judith Sonnet. And I have read something by Judith Sonnet before. I read No One Rides for Free, and I can't remember what I rated it, but it is extreme horror novella, okay? Extreme. I remember I had to put it down because I was like, if I continue reading, I will not be able to eat my dinner in a few hours because this is grim. Now, Tapeworming, I think, was less hideous and more funny. I think because No One Rides for Free could be a true story, which makes me nervous. It focuses on like the horrors of people, whereas Tapeworming focuses more on kind of the supernatural happening. I mean, it could happen, I guess. That's disturbing. But it was less real for me, so less disgusting. But very funny, light-hearted, but extreme horror. Very graphic. Don't go into it lightly, but I am going to do a vlog where I read more of Judith Sonnet's extreme horror novellas because I'm interested, okay? I'm interested. And what that says about me, I don't know. I don't think I want to know. But I rated this one 3 stars. It was a good, silly, grim time. And last in September, for my TBR prompt, a letter, it's a little bit pretzel stretchy, I read Bridget Jones' Diary by Helen Fielding. Now, a little bit of lore about me. I love Bridget Jones' Diary. The first film, I am obsessed. I love it so much. And I know, it is so problematic. Like, it is fat-phobic in, like, all the worst ways. It really is terrible. The fact that Bridget Jones is, I don't know, she's like 9 stone something? And she's like, oh, I'm so fat. Ridiculous. But it is so of its time. Like, that is early 2000s in a nutshell. We hate to see it, but the film is just such a silly, fun time for me. It is so nostalgic and it holds a super special place in my heart. And I was very curious to read the book and to see whether the two were in any way similar. They are very similar. I actually rated this 4 stars and I knew going into it that it would be problematic for the weight side of it and also just like her always needing a man to find any piece of joy in her life. Even though she's got a great job, a flat in central London, I think it's central London, unsure, and a group of really great fun friends. She needs a man, she can't find joy in any of that. But, you know, problematic, of course, early 2000s problematic. However, I had a really fun time. It made me laugh out loud in parts. I was listening to the audiobook and yeah, had a really good time. So if you can look past the problems, it is a good fun read, but yeah, I admit that it does have many problems. I don't think I'd be interested in continuing the series, especially because I know what happens because I've seen all of the films, but it did make me want to watch the films, so 4 stars is good though. There were some books that I was only partway through by the end of September. I mean, today is the 29th, so I do have tomorrow. It seems unlikely, I've got a very busy day. So I am halfway through Blood on Her Tongue. I'll put the covers up here because I can't be bothered to go and get them. I'm halfway through Blood on Her Tongue. I'm halfway through Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings, the second in the Magnolia Park series. I am partway through The Scorpion and the Night Blossom, I think maybe 35–40% of the way through. I am also partway through The Strawberry Patch Pancake House, if you can actually believe it. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I don't know why. But here we are. And also, I've got 5 current reads. Don't ask any questions, please. I wouldn't like to look into why I've done this to myself. I am also partway through They Bloom at Night. And this one I've had on the go for quite a while, but I'm just kind of dipping into it as and when I'm reading outside of my house, because it's the only book I'm currently reading where I'm reading it in paperback form. So there is a reason. So one of them is an ebook, one of them is an audiobook, one is a hardback, so I'm only reading it at home because it's heavy and also it's a really beautiful edition. And then I have another audiobook and a paperback. So do you see what I mean? Do you see how this happened? Anyway, I'll hopefully finish those in October and we can do our Q4 wrap up. If you would like quarterly, if you'd like monthly, let me know and I'll see what I can do. But I make no promises because it was quite rough, because it's quite hard doing a wrap up and my TBR game in quick succession. It makes the end of my month quite stressful. So I prefer to do quarterly, and so the next time you will have one of these videos will likely be in January, where I can wrap up everything I read in October, November, December. The best months, if you will. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in a video very, very soon. Bye!
Let me show you a place where you gon' wanna move.